Welcome to a football show here live from SEC Media Days 2023. And we don't have a ton of SEC news to talk about because DeAndre Hopkins is now a Tennessee Titan. And we've got that to talk about today on the show. Do appreciate you guys joining us. Brought to you by, of course, Sinkers Beverages and the Kingston Group. We also have a really great interview with Hendon Hooker coming up a little bit later on in the show. Got a chance to talk to him on Monday morning. My name is Braden Gall. He is Zach Lyne. Zach, how are you, sir? Good to see you.
Doing good. Looking very dapper today on your SEC Media Days. You know, I like that you went with a neutral color that doesn't really scream any kind of, perceived fandom.
Actually, now that I think about it, thank you for pointing that out. I do look rather Texas A&M today.
I can't. It doesn't really come across on the video. That's very Texas A&M. But...
I did not mean to do that, and I appreciate you. So there's LSU, Missouri, and Texas A&M on Monday, of course, and so obviously I have a maroon and white shirt on. So,
there you go.
I screwed up. I'm going blue pants tomorrow, white dress shirt. Got some Jordan 1s we're going with tomorw. So there we go.
So you wear dress slacks to this thing. Are you considered overdressed?
My wife and I had a huge debate about this. I wear sport coats and dress shirts most of the time. Yeah. Maybe on Thursday I'm going to go polo. But I'm here on Radio Row, so I've got to be a little quiet about this because I don't want to offend everyone on Radio Row. But like the basic people in the press room and on Radio Row, not exactly the most dapper.
That's what I wonder, because I feel like if you're wearing blue pants tomorrow, that may be a little much.
The TV folk are the ones who are dressed very, very fancy. But you know what? Dress for the job you want, not the job you got. I guess is the rule. And so I've got to do some stuff for ESPN here, but and for Athlon as well. But we're here on a football show, and we got to talk Titans as well as SEC Media Days. So we're going to do Netflix style quarterback documentary from the SEC. Who would be the names? Mahomes, Cousins, and, of course, Marcus Mariota in the documentary. Finished it up over the weekend with the wife. She loved it. And, of course, who would be the quarterbacks in the SEC you'd want to see on that documentary? So we'll do that later on. We got Hendon Hooker interview coming up a little bit later on as well. We talked about Josh Heupel communication, getting drafted, et cetera, et cetera. So you guys are going to hear that. Obviously,
Hendon Hooker interview,
yes,
by the way.
a full one-on-one 10-minute interview with Hendon Hooker. Of course, brought to you by Bush's Baked Beans. Check that out. I got me a can that says Hendon right there. There's a can of beans. It says Hendon Hooker if you're watching on the YouTube.
You think Roger McCreary is jealous?
I was gonna. It's funny you mentioned that. I wanted to be like, how could I work Roger McCreary into an interview with Hendon Hooker? And I don't think he played Auburn, so I was like, I don't think I can do it. But dude loves him.
Now you have to take that to Titans training camp. And say, hey, man, where's my can of McCreary Bush's baked beans? Even though that he's not eating baked beans anymore.
That is 1,000,000% true, and I will do that in 2 weeks when camp opens up. So Sinkers Beverages, of course, up in East Nashville. Make sure you check them out. Uber Eats, search Sinkers Beverages. They will deliver the booze directly to your house.
So you can drink.
I got me some long drinks over the weekend, Zach.
I saw the video.
The wife didn't like I saw some pictures of you, by the way. I didn't want to see on the internet this weekend. but no, the wife didn't like the regular one, but loved the cranberry one. They got lots of different options. I'm a 10% alcohol guy now, so give me the long drink there. You can get that at Sinkers Beverages, along with lots of other great selection of booze. Of course, you got great bourbon allocation. Join the in-crowd. Bluegrass up in Hendersonville as well, the sister city. So make sure you go check that out. Kingston Group, buildkg.com. You guys know the drill. That is the number, or that is the website. So go call them. Make sure you have a conversation before you do anything else with your house. Again, big decisions about your home. There you go. Okay. Are you ready to get into this?
Let's do it.
So we're going to get into what exactly all this means with DeAndre Hopkins, the win total. I was at a children's birthday party for most of the day on Sunday when the news broke. Of course, a couple of people came over and like, dude, we got Hop. And I was like, okay, what's the numbers? And I waited and found out the numbers. And I know you can kind of walk us through the incentives and the details. 2 years, $26 million, $12 million on the front end. Incentives kick it up with that are very, very, I don't know if they're attainable, all three of them. However, what is it? 95 catches, 1,050 yards, and 10 touchdowns. However, if that happens, DeAndre Hopkins will be worth every single stinking, disgusting penny of the contract. But what was your reaction? First and foremost, Titans fans were super fired up about it around me at this little kid's birthday party. Your reaction first when you saw the news, how surprised, how excited should Titans fan be that, forget the contract, that DeAndre Hopkins is a Tennessee Titan?
My first reaction was happy birthday to me because it was my birthday yesterday.
Happy birthday, Zach.
love to do things that I've been wanting them to do on my birthday. A couple of years ago, it was extending Derrick Henry at the franchise tag deadline. This year, it's DeAndre Hopkins. So I was nursing a hangover, and there was no better way to temporarily forget I was miserable than DeAndre Hopkins signing.
What was that? The boys in the pool photo that was created the hangover?
Boys, with a Z on the end. Me, Stoney, and my dad were hanging out drinking at the pool. Yeah. So, I mean, how can you not be excited, especially if you are an analyst who's been predicting success and rebound already without DeAndre Hopkins, me, and now you've just basically secured every prediction that you made as an analyst. I mean, I don't know. Like, I know that I think if DeAndre Hopkins, because the big debate is the win totals now. So that's been the big debate. We still got people that think that the Tennessee Titans aren't going to win more than 5 games, even with DeAndre Hopkins. Like, he's not a multiplier. We got people predicting on the other end 11 plus wins. Obviously, I was predicting 10 wins. I do think 11 wins seems a little bit more possible based on my prediction. Then the win-loss total at the betting did not move. It was 7.5 before DeAndre Hopkins, still 7.5 now. So it's very interesting to see the difference in games added. But if I go back to last year's Tennessee Titans, even with Dennis Daly, if DeAndre Hopkins had been on that team, we are talking different record, right? We're talking about a guy that if he would have played in a few of those games that he was qualified to play in because there was a suspension, and remember, he would have came back during the losing streak. This is a guy that makes off-target throws look like miraculous catches. And there's Malik Willis and Josh Dobbs in there in that run of quarterbacks. So there are no two more quarterbacks that could have benefited from DeAndre Hopkins. I just feel like you look at it, can a wide receiver affect the games to a vast degree? No. But would he have maybe turned their fortunes around during a losing streak? Absolutely.
So I think it's interesting because I think you said, I don't know when you said this. This was a couple months ago, maybe on the show, and it's like, how many wins is Ryan Tannehill worth? And I think the conversation was maybe like 2-ish, right, give or take.
Yeah.
And so I think the right way to look at it is not like, and maybe on the 7.5, for example, I might have gone under before. I'll probably go over now. Like do I think that this was a clear front runner for Jacksonville with a clear number 2 with the Titans and everyone else behind them? But it's going to be a battle. That's how I felt before. Now I feel like it's more of a 50-50 proposition in the division. That's how I feel. So it moves the needle. It clearly does. It makes them better. He is a valuable asset, and we'll get to what he actually does for the offense. Because I think there's a lot of like, oh, 12 million is too much for a number 2. He's a number 1. He's a number 1 receiver on the team. Doesn't mean he's going to catch the most passes or be targeted the most or whatever, but he is the most dangerous weapon for now until Treylon Burks becomes that, hopefully at some point during the season. What I find interesting, though, is to your point about the win total. The way to describe it for me is there are so many games in which you are going to be in close situations, competitive games, one-score games. And over time, those games, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they tend to be 50-50 propositions. It's hard to sustain 7-0 in one-score games or 0-7 in one-score games, right? Like, it's hard to do that. What DeAndre Hopkins gives you is 4 or 5 plays per game that maybe play the difference in who knows how many games that are close in this season. Let's say 7 or 8 of them are one-score games. Well, instead of losing 2 of those, maybe you win 2 of those. And it's not because DeAndre Hopkins made them 2 wins better. It's because in every single game, they're just a little bit more competitive. And so,
well, and you got to think that a lot of those games, Robert Woods is your number 1 wide receiver. If he had been on the team instead of Robert Woods in those one-score games that you're referencing, that is a world of difference in ability on the field.
Yeah. And I think so. One of my main questions for you is what makes this different than Jadeveon Clowney, more importantly, Julio Jones, or I think there's a huge difference in Randy Moss and Andre Johnson, but
yeah,
let's go with Julio as the direct comparison. And you and I have talked about this. I want everyone to sort of know, because everybody got excited about all those names. Everyone was like, oh, Hell yeah, we got him. We got him.
Not all the names, but for the most recent names, I would agree with.
I want to know what you why is DeAndre Hopkins a different commodity? Certainly a very different price point than any of those other guys. That's for sure. So Rand Carthon, right out of the gate, has told you how much more they value DeAndre Hopkins. But for you, what is the value and what's the risk reward proposition that makes DeAndre Hopkins different than Julio Jones?
Well, first off, he's a year younger. So, I mean, I know that doesn't seem like a difference, but it is. But the biggest difference is that Julio Jones was coming off missing multiple games with a severe injury that he has never been able to overcome since. And what I mean by that is that when you are a guy like Julio Jones who depends a lot on explosive athleticism, then injuries can pile up, and he suffered injuries throughout his entire career. But those injuries pile up, it can limit your effectiveness. Now, Julio Jones also didn't practice all offseason, even though that he was here for training camp and was signed and traded for before training camp. He just never did. Will DeAndre Hopkins? I don't know. But this was also a offense that Julio hadn't been in, and DeAndre Hopkins, for all intents and purposes, this is one.
In fact, he might be more experienced in the offense than all the other receivers on the team.
Yes. And to me, DeAndre Hopkins is a guy that wins with separation and technique, not athleticism. And so when you are like that, you tend to be able to age more gracefully. Now, people are going to bring up the knee injury last year, which for everything that we have heard coming out of Arizona and everything that has kind of been alluded to by people close to DeAndre Hopkins and some analysts, that was like, Kyler Murray's not playing. We suck. I'm not putting myself out there because I know you guys already want to try to get rid of me. Okay, I understand it. I get it. I never really, for the last two games, I mean, what's the last two games anyway? If they were in the playoff hunt, that would be a little different, right? Like,
yeah, you judge it.
You're already in a losing proposition. Why go out there? So here's why DeAndre Hopkins isn't washed, even though that every Patriots fan now says that he is, every Chiefs fan now says that he is, and every Bills fan now says that.
And that would have been the same thing had he signed with the Patriots. Titans fans would have gone on Twitter and been like, "Oh well, we didn't need him anyway." But like that's just
let me tell you
that's football.
Normally, I would agree with you, but the Titans fans would have been not really focused on DeAndre Hopkins. They'd be focused on Rand Carthon. Like, that's who they were going to be.
Well, no, that's true. That's true. That's true.
He was first in average cushion generated, 5.71 yards. He was second in 43.4% of air yard share. He was second in 47% win rate versus man. He was fourth in 51.8% route win rate, and he's 29.4% target share, which was fourth. That was last year in the games that he played. And if you look at Kyler Murray's EPA per attempts with Kyler or with DeAndre Hopkins, without DeAndre Hopkins, it is a stark Grand Canyon-sized gap of one player and what he does. And one of the things that he does is off-target throws. And Ryan Tannehill doesn't have a lot of off-target throws, but he also has never had anybody actually get separation since A.J. Brown, and maybe you could count in Corey Davis on top of that.
Well, so what's interesting is how he gets separation. Like, he's not going to get separation on the third level with speed.
No,
that's
gone.
That's not what he's going to do.
But still, you got the first and the second level, right?
Right,
Like,
right, and maybe he never even had that. Let's be clear. Like, that may not have ever been a big part of his game anyway.
And to be honest, Robert Woods had no separation or speed at the first, second, or third level last year.
Right. What makes him so good, and this has been the case since he was a recruit and since he was at Clemson, he is Devontae Adams-esque in his manipulation and control of the position. It is about footwork. It is about body control. It's about physicality. It's about positioning. It's about hips. It's about, and we know the push-off stuff as a joke, but it's like not a joke. It's like what he does well, but it's all the other stuff that's baked into that. It's especially on in-breaking routes, which we know the Titans want to run. The things that he does very, very well, to me, are things that he can still do very well in this offense. And they don't, like, do they still need to find someone that can go burn down the field? Like, yeah, that hasn't been a piece of this offense in like 25 years. Like, they haven't had that. But everything he does with age with a little injury with this system is stuff that is mitigated versus, again, we've said this before, Julio's primary asset was his size and his straight line speed. And that is the thing that diminishes with age faster. Long story short, if DeAndre Hopkins has never been open his entire career and still made all these plays, why couldn't he still do it at this age? Now, is he going to be all pro, 1,500 yards? Like, of course not. Like, he's an older player. But what it does for me, as if I'm a Titans fan and I'm Treylon Burks or Kyle Phillips or Chigakonkwo, is there's so much steam, Zach, that has been let out of the kettle. The kettle is like on offense for playmakers is boiling and boiling and boiling, and there's pressure. And what they need to do is they need someone to release some of that pressure. And that is what DeAndre Hopkins does for me. It releases pressure on Tannehill. It releases pressure on the offensive line. It releases pressure on Derrick Henry. It releases pressure on Treylon Burks and Okonkwo. And it makes everything a little bit easier to flow. And I think that is why it's worth it. You have the money. Next year, the money doesn't even matter next year, whatever the money is. So it's not our money. It's funny money anyway.
You would want him next year anyway. This is what I've been saying the whole time, is that you want him. You want the option for a multi-year deal because you're likely going to have Will Levis or Malik Willis be your quarterback. It's likely not going to be Ryan Tannehill. And at that point, a guy like DeAndre Hopkins and Treylon Burks and Chigakonkwo and Kyle Phillips in the third year for all those guys, and then another year of DeAndre Hopkins is a good thing for Will Levis.
Yes.
Or Malik Willis.
Yeah, there's no question. And so I think there's the money, because they had so much space and the need. Now, we can get into, like, did Vrabel know this was going to happen? If he did, when he said, there's going to be plenty of options that we're going to get to. And
my conspiracy theory all along is that he's known.
But then he came awfully close to not doing it because the Patriots still had a chance. Like, it was close, but at 22, he clearly is a Tennessee Titan. The plan clearly worked. Give credit to Rand Carthon for now. Give credit to Mike Vrabel. Now, if you're one of those people that says this is a terrible signing and he ends up being terrible and busted and washed, then you'll be right. But right now, most people, myself, I'll just be responsible for me, and you can be responsible for you. I think at this price point, with this weakness in a winnable division, when you can make your team equivalent to, or not the front runner, depending on how you view the team, as good as anybody else to get into the playoffs now in the AFC South, it's a risk you have to take. DeAndre Hopkins does all the things you need him to do. Age is not as big of a factor in his declining skill set. If he catches 65 passes for 800 yards and 8 touchdowns, it will be worth it, even if that's a little under market for 12 million or whatever. He becomes the focal point of the passing defense on the opposite side, and that helps everybody else on the team.
Well, it also helps mitigate some of the pressure on your right tackle as well. Like your right tackle situation for the first 6 weeks is, tenuous at best right now. There is a lot of people pushing for George Fant, and George Fant has even said all they have to do is call. He responded to a tweet, and that's what he said, as a Teron Davenport tweet. And all they got to do is call my people. So there is, that's the next domino, right? Is like, to me, they were in a holding pattern with a lot of different things. More free agent additions, which they probably will bring in. Will Levis's contract. DeAndre Hopkins is that first domino to fall. Now, the other domino to fall is whose contract is going to get messed with. Now, a lot of people say, well, it's just really easy to do Harold Landry. Sure. If you want to create $10 million, you can restructure, Harold Landry's contract. It's a contract I wouldn't touch. I've been on record that I wouldn't do it, but I could see why they would do it. But to me, it's Kevin Byard. Just go ahead. Yeah. You are obviously in win now mode. Go ahead and do an extension with Kevin Byard, free up a ton of money, and let's go get George Fant. Go get maybe Yannick Ngakoue as well. They share the same agent, by the way, George Fant and Yannick Ngakoue.
You want to spend $10 million on third down?
Who cares? I mean, you're in win now mode, right? Like, I mean, like, are you are in win now mode? Okay. 9.5 sacks is pretty damn good to have for win now mode. Like, that's what you're in.
One year. Well, if you can get a bunch of short-term deals, that's fine. I'm good with that.
But like, here's the thing. The Patriots fans are acting like Mac Jones is a better quarterback than Ryan Tannehill. Just I know that we do not agree with that, but I want to say just how good Ryan Tannehill is, by the way.
I think you're taking the bait on even bringing this subject up.
Well,
that's how much better Ryan Tannehill is than Mac Jones.
Yeah. Well, I also think that it's for Titans fans that they need to hear this as well. Some Titans fans who are like, well, too bad we don't have anybody throw him the ball and, stuff like that,
I mean, you know me.
There's also Titans fans and analysts and all this stuff that also think that Trevor Lawrence is better. But if you really look at the stats, EPA per dropback, he's number 9 since 2019. Passer rating, he's number 6. Yards per attempt, he's number 4. Adjusted yards per attempt, he's number 6. Completion rate, number 10. Touchdown to interception ratio is number 10. That's Ryan Tannehill with that dreadful 2021 year included. And I'm telling you, a lot of people think he's not as good as what he is. And I think people just got to understand that he may not ever be, and he won't. I mean, a Patrick Mahomes, a Joe Burrow, a Josh Allen. But everything says that since coming to the Tennessee Titans, he is at least a top 15 quarterback, even though the data says he's really a top 10.
Well, again, this is a good topic here because I am one of the people that does think Trevor Lawrence is better. I'm one of the people that does give Tannehill a little bit a tougher time, and I will stand here and sit here right now and just with as much passion and gusto as one can say there is no chance that Mac Jones is on the same platform as Ryan Tannehill. Like, if it comes from me, then it has to be true because I'm one of the guys that probably gives Ryan a little bit harder time than he maybe deserves. I'm the one who does think Trevor Lawrence is a little bit better. Like those. So I'm like one of the guys that's on that end of the spectrum of Ryan Tannehill, but still think he's a top 15 quarterback and don't think Mac Jones is anywhere close. So like, it's just that I saw that tweet and I saw people reacting to it. And I'm just kind of like, I hope Titans fans don't take this seriously. Like I hope the folks that are out there and you read that, this is one of those where you just need to laugh and put the phone down. Just laugh and put the phone down. Look, Patriots fans that are they're in their feels about not getting DeAndre Hopkins. The Titans did it. Rand Carthon did it. Who knows if it's going to work or not? It makes them more competitive. It makes them maybe, if you think they're on par with Jacksonville, now they're the front runner. I thought they were slightly behind Jacksonville. Now I think it's dead even. It's great news for Titans fans, and Rand Carthon got the job done. And that's it. Like, Patriots fans, sorry, dude. But, like, my advice to Titans fans is just who fucking cares? Like, I would just be like, who cares? Like, let's see how he works with Tim Kelly. Let's see what he can teach Treylon Burks. Let's see what he does for Ryan Tannehill on 3rd and 7. Let's see what he does to open up lanes for Derrick Henry. Let's see what he does to safety coverage. Let's see what he does to help the offense be better. And he's going to make him, as long as he's out there, he's going to make him better.
Yeah, that's the the biggest thing is get busted for PEDs or whatever that they may come up. I'm not as worried about injury as everybody else seems to be, even though it is the Tennessee Titans. But at some point, your injury luck has to change for the better or for worse, depending on the team. If you got multiple years of one trend, it's not going to continue. It's just how it's going to go.
Yep.
But I look at it and I think about, because I talked about it on stackingtheinbox.com on Thursday's article about analytics and about passing from heavy personnel groupings. And I put in there with the possibility of D-Hop that in 12 personnel, which is really, really good for the Tennessee Titans to pass from, even though they had no analytics department to tell them that last year, that if they pass from that, it's going to be DeAndre Hopkins, Treylon Burks on the field.
Yeah.
So if they run from that as well. So like, that's the thing, right? They want to be able to show one formation and do multiple things out of it. Now, in a 12 personnel, you have Derrick Henry in the backfield. You got Trevon Wesco and Chig as your tight ends, and DeAndre Hopkins and Treylon Burks. You could run that formation all the way down the field and do multiple different things out of it and be successful because of DeAndre Hopkins now, in addition to Treylon Burks, Chig, and Derrick Henry. So your run should be more successful, and they should have more expected points added. Your passes should be the same way, and that's what you should do. There should be no reason that they pull the Cody Hollister, NWI kind of bull crap they did last year that lets you know that they're likely not going to pass from this formation because one of these guys is out there, if not both.
Yep. I want to add to that real fast, but I want to remind everybody about Sinkers Beverages and the Kingston Group. Of course, buildkg.com is the website. So if you're making any big decisions about your house, have a conversation with the Kingston Group. Nose to tail, baby. Nose to tail. Locally owned custom home and remodeling firm. Make sure you call the Kingston Group just to have a conversation with me before you make any big decisions about your house. You guys know the drill. Sinkers Beverages. Sign up for the in-crowd. It gives you great opportunities for really good stuff like special bourbon allocations and possibly barrel picks that Zach and I helped with coming here in a couple of months. We're going to have access to about, I think, 2 cases of those bottles. We picked them. Well, we didn't. We helped pick them. And of course, if you're in the in-crowd, you'll get access to purchase those through a football show, 440 and Zach and I. So please check it out. Sign up. Bluegrass up in Hendersonville as well. Again, search Uber Eats. Search Sinkers Beverages and have the booze delivered directly to your house. Be safe.
They'll drive
safe,
so you can drink.
There you go. So the last thing I wanted to add about the formational stuff, which I find really interesting, is because DeAndre Hopkins can just be put out there as the number one, whether the number one in formation. Let's call it that. I don't care what you think about his production or his skill set or whatever. But what it allows them to do is to be more creative with some pieces that are inherently creative. They can be more positionless with Treylon Burks. I don't be surprised if he's in the backfield a couple times. Don't Chikakonkwo, same guy, positionless. You can have him offset as a tight end. You can have him in line. You can have him in the slot. You can have him kicked out wide. You can motion him into the backfield. Tajay Spears, positionless player. You can move him anywhere on the field because you don't need Treylon Burks to be the number one now. He now can become a more versatile piece that can play anywhere in the formation. So it's the trickle-down effect, which doesn't happen in real-life economics, but happens in football offenses. And when DeAndre Hopkins is out there as a Y or as an X, whatever it may be, you then can take these other pieces and put them anywhere you want. You could run 13 personnel, and Treylon Burks could be one of your tight ends. You know what I mean? Like, you could run 22 personnel, and Chikakonkwo could be one of your running backs. Like, you could do all kinds of stuff because these guys are so versatile. And all of it becomes open because DeAndre Hopkins can now be just put out there as the number one, and he's just there. And you don't have to worry about it.
It just changes everything. And I love how the contract is set up to reward not only DeAndre Hopkins, but reward the Tennessee Titans, right? None of these incentives are likely to be earned, which means that they do not count against the cap in 2023. Genius. And they are all barely just above last year's marks for DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, he did 64 receptions, 717 yards, and 3 touchdowns. The first level is 65 receptions, 750 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Now, listen, but it goes up every so often, and that, yes, that will count towards next year. But if he were to get 95-plus receptions, 1,050 yards, and 10 touchdowns, and you had to add $3 million to his cap hit next year, yes, please. Like, that is no fucking brainer. Even if it's, 85, 950, and 6 touchdowns. Yes, please. That is still a no fucking brainer. It's a
that'd be one of the greatest. That'd be one of the greatest receiving seasons in Titans history.
Yeah, I mean it's so good, but it's also highly attainable for someone like him. I mean, I expect that we'll probably see a regression of yards per reception, right? Because of how this offense is ran. There's no Kyler Murray spread offense that you're going to have, and all that. So I think 11.2 yards per reception. I think that you can expect maybe he's going to get 5 receptions a game.
AJ Brown did.
Yeah, I'm working on trying to figure out where that's going to land and all that. But to me, it's like if you're getting this kind of production out of him, when you were talking about Julio Jones, who in Tennessee, he did pretty well. I mean, we're talking about a guy that averaged 3.1 receptions per game. But that was such a mess under Todd Downing. And then last year, you look at Robert Woods, and the difference between Robert Woods, because I've seen people start including Robert Woods in the veterans that flame out. which is a totally different situation in Robert Woods. But, he averaged, again, 3.1 yards receptions per game, but only 31 yards a game. Like, he wasn't good. And his yards per reception was 9.9. So you're talking about at least you're going to be getting way over that from Julio Jones.
Sorry,
DeAndre Hopkins.
From DeAndre Hopkins. I agree. So I think by and large, we can move on here, but it's all positive. We've got plenty of time. I can't wait for camp to see how the formational lineups, like we were just talking about.
I can't wait to see how much he practices. To me, that's the biggest storyline. That's the biggest question to me going forward is how much does he actually practice with the team compared to Julio Jones last year and Robert Woods? Because, Robert Woods practiced all damn summer long. Julio Jones didn't. Like, they were two opposites. He needs to be somewhere in between for us to, I think, for everybody to feel comfortable because you're talking about a guy, you got to build chemistry. This offense has to build chemistry and needs to build it quick. It cannot go through what it went through the Julio years. It needs to come out of the gate non-sluggish with DeAndre Hopkins as a valuable member of that team ready to rock and roll.
There you go. Okay, so we're going to get to Hendon Hooker. I had a conversation with him on Monday morning. We'll chat with him about all kinds of fun stuff. Tennessee, Joe Milton getting drafted, life in the SEC, Josh Heupel, lots of cool stuff. So we'll talk with him coming up in just a few minutes. And then after that, we'll play the Netflix quarterback documentary game for SEC quarterbacks. But before we do, we had a request for this, and we kind of did this a little bit in terms of we did it a little bit more thoroughly on the defensive side. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here on this, but we did mention when we ranked the offensive units, like what people were asking, like what would it be if they get Hopkins? And sort of you look at like the receiving core, and they go from 3 to 1B right with Jacksonville, or that kind of thing. Wide receivers and tight ends, certainly they are very much right there with Jacksonville. Although Jacksonville, you now have to include Evan Ingram because they got the contract done, it looks like, with him. So I wanted to quickly, because we had the request to maybe now more thoroughly look at it with DeAndre Hopkins as a part of this. I'm not going to go through all the unit rankings. Go listen to our conversation last Monday on the show for that. But if you have to rank the entire offenses, and I guess we could throw in head play caller. Do you want to throw in play caller with this?
It kind of is involved anyway when you talk about this, because to me the Jaguars are 1A because they have continuity between the play caller and the offense, whereas the Titans are, yes, they're getting a better play caller, and yes, they are getting a theoretically easier system that plays to their strengths, and they've had DeAndre Hopkins. They're clearly still 1B because there is a lack of continuity between all the pieces, chemistry. But it's kind of one of those things where we talked about last week multiple times. At the end of the year, I could totally see it being swapped.
Yeah. I would lean Jacksonville slightly better at quarterback, Jacksonville better at offensive line, but only slightly. Jacksonville slightly better in the receiving core, Tennessee better at running back. That's how I would look at it. I would say play calling, slight edge to the guy who's won the Super Bowl and designed the offense, because that's like the only thing that I think he does fairly well is run the offense. So I think Jacksonville is the best offense. I think Tennessee right now on paper, they have a better quarterback than Indy and Houston right now. They have a better number one or better running back other than Jonathan Taylor. They have a better running back than Houston. They're not as good on the offensive line as either of those two teams potentially. I think they're better at receiver and tight end than Houston now. And so I think that puts them at number 2 pretty clearly. I think I guess I would have a tie between Houston and Indy, like every other position on the field.
I think it's obviously Indy is better on the field.
Okay. Because they're better on the offensive line, and they're better
running backs
at running back for sure. And I guess I would,
wide receivers.
Yeah, so I'd go Houston 4. I'd go Houston 4, Indy 3, Tennessee 2, Jacksonville 1 if you have to rank them. That's how I would rank the total offenses with the play callers. But as Tim Kelly gets better, as Treylon Burks gets better, as Tajay Spears and Okonkwo get better, I could see them closing the gap significantly on Jacksonville, to your point.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I would view it right there.
Okay. All right. Well, with that in mind, Sinkers Beverages, Kingster Group, of course, are proud sponsors. But Bush's Baked Beans, shout out here. Again, there's the can if you're watching on YouTube or Twitter. There's the can. It's got Hendon's name on it, Bush's Baked Beans. Hendon, this is what I use technically in my chili. I definitely use Bush's kidney beans. But here's the deal. I am absolutely going to take that can out to practice and ask Roger McCreary if he wants to hold the can and say "Go Vols." We'll see if he'll do it. Otherwise, we'll kind of come back and we're going to talk SEC quarterbacks Netflix documentary. Who would we pick if they were doing it? Otherwise, here was my conversation at SEC Media Days with former Tennessee Vols quarterback Hendon Hooker. We are here at SEC Media Days 2023, and the guy, Hendon Hooker, here, of course, with Bush's Baked Beans. Hendon, first of all, is this a unique experience coming back after last year having the suit and the tie on and answering a lot of questions? You still got the shoes going, but how is this for you now that you're on the other side of your college career?
It's fun. It's fun. I remember talking to Joe Milton a couple of days ago, and he was like, "What are you going to wear?" I'm like, "I don't have to wear the suit this year, bro." So, just excited to come back and see a lot of familiar faces.
When you first got to Knoxville, obviously the tailgating scene, Virginia Tech's got a great tailgating scene, but Knoxville's a little bit better. We can all admit that. I'm a big chili guy. I make big pots of chili during the fall, obviously with Bush's Baked Beans. When you got to Knoxville, what was the vibe and the sense of what SEC football was all like? And I know, again, you and Joe were battling for a position there, but what was that like when you got to the SEC?
It was amazing just to hear the stories of, what took place in Knoxville when there were big-time games and big-time wins. And then just everyone in the locker room telling me how amazing it was to play in Neyland. So I was very excited, to actually get in there. Even the first game when we played Bowling Green, it was a Thursday night game. The atmosphere was just amazing. And be able to step on the field and everyone just roaring in the stadium, it was cool.
All right, so you're watching games this year, SEC games, you get Saturdays off. I tell people in the NFL all the time that for some reason don't watch college football. I don't understand. You're going to be watching ball on Saturdays. How are you preparing? What's the tailgate like at the Hooker household?
Yeah, so, we have our secret recipe for the Bush's Baked Beans. Definitely going to hop on the grill, maybe some chicken, of course, hot dogs, hamburgers, traditional. And for sure, some type of fruity drinks are going to be there. But I'm excited to see my Vols go out there and put on a show.
Take us through Joe's evolution, because this is a guy who's been through a lot in his career. Michigan comes with you guys. You guys battle for the job. You eventually take over. Of course, I think people this week are going to really get to know him a little bit. He's an extraordinary dude, huge arm. We know that stuff. But what do people not know about Joe Milton, and what has he learned from you and Hype over the last 2 years that makes him ready for this season?
Yeah, Joe is very personable, brings great energy, and his football IQ is very high as well. So him just coming into the locker room and taking over and displaying his leadership. Even when he wasn't the starter, he still displayed his leadership and trying to get his troops, go in the right direction. When he's on the field, he's going to make big-time plays. And as we all know, he has a big-time arm. So, I'm excited to see him, continue to stack days. We both used to build off of each other, compete at a high level on the field and off the field. We're both just picking each other's brains. I'm sure we're going to have a good sit-down this evening. Joe's a cook as well, so he makes his own spaghetti. So we call it Joe Sketty. If you ask him about Joe Sketty, he's going to laugh. But I'm expecting to have some good plates this evening.
I appreciate the inside intel there. Now, the question is, can you put beans in Joe Sketty? Is that possible?
No beans on the Joe Sketty. So.
All right. So what do you cook? I mean, obviously you got the chicken, the hot dogs, and the tailgate, and I hear all that. But so you guys, do you learn from him on how to cook, or is that?
I think the only dish that I took from Joe was the dirty rice. He makes the dirty rice. So 4th of July we cooked while we were out of town. He hopped on the grill. He took everything on the grill. I took everything in the kitchen: beans, pasta salad, dirty rice, corn. And put the corn on the grill, so it was a good spread.
Hey, when you're down, that you learned all that, of course, down when you win by 3 touchdowns in Baton Rouge. That's where you learn all the dirty rice. Let me ask you about Josh Heupel. Heupel's a guy that I find fascinating. That he steps into the job and immediately, his communication style, his leadership, it landed with you. I talked to Cedric Tillman last year about this, and he said he talks with us every day and gets to know us every day, and that makes such a big difference. In your words, what is it about Josh Heupel that makes him so good at landing and connecting with players and getting you guys motivated?
I think just how much he cares. I just shot a quick scene, and he got a glimpse of it, and he shot me a text. He's like, "You look good, man. I can't wait to see you on the field again." So. Just him being so personable and bringing great energy every day. He doesn't want anything but the best for us. If he sees something out of line, he's going to call it, and we appreciate him for that. He's going to be the same guy every single day. He's gonna love on you. He's gonna get on you when you need to be got on to. And then his football IQ is immaculate. You don't want to do anything but be around him and learn. So day in and day out, he's teaching us new things and teaching us why we're doing those things.
Can you explain to the non-expert schematically why his offense is so productive?
Because he lets the quarterback be a quarterback and have fun and play with freedom. He puts the trust in you, and he knows that your preparation is gonna have you ready for the game time situations. Practice is 10 times harder as far as situational work, and a lot of people talk about that, the game-winning drive against Alabama, but we were doing that almost every single day in practice. Imagine being backed up on the goal line and trying to go score the ball in practice, and then when we get in the game, it's 10 times easier.
I know you guys had the Bushes at the draft party, too. I want to ask you about that, but quickly on Alabama. I can't let you go without asking about that. What is, the first thing that you guys say to each other? You get into the locker room, the cigars are being passed out, Heupel's celebrating, you guys are going nuts. What is the exact thing you guys are telling each other? Yeah,
so what's crazy is I ran straight to my parents thinking that they were going to be there, my family was going to be there. My dad, sister, and some of my friends hopped over the fence and ran on the field, and my mom was the only one there. I'm like, where's everyone at? So I was the first one in the locker room. I was like, man, I got in here a little too early. But I remember just dapping everybody up, and they were saying, I told you. So there was a lot of I told yous going on.
There was a lot of cell phone messages in the state of Tennessee that night for a long, long time. So quickly, you had Bushes all at the draft party. Explain what's that like when you hear your name and you get the call and you know the whole thing's actually coming true.
Yeah, I told my family I wasn't gonna cry, and I didn't, because I knew that I deserved to get my name called, and the work that I put in was gonna put me there. So this is just a stepping stone. I think I'll probably shed a tear after first game and get my feet wet on the field and make some plays.
Did you have a welcome to the SEC moment? ACC football is very good. Virginia Tech's very good. I'm not trying to knock on them, but did you have a moment where you just said, "Oh, this is a little different"? Because you obviously are about to go into camp, and everybody has that welcome to the NFL moment. Did you have one of those in the SEC, and how are you prepared for that in the NFL?
Yeah, I think our first practice, I don't know if it would be a welcome to SEC. I think it was a welcome to Hendon Hooker world type of thing. When because all the guys were like, "Well, I mean, you played in the ACC, that's cool, but we just watch SEC football." I'm like, oh, okay. So from leading guys off the field to then at first spring practice, one time I scrambled out of the pocket and made two linebackers touch the ground and broke their ankles, and they were like, okay, you can really play football, Hendon. And I'm like, oh, thanks, guys. I hope that we can win some games together.
It's the other way around. It was I can do this.
I can do it. It was kind of a I have to prove myself type of thing, but I wouldn't want to be in any other conference. The best play here in the SEC, and they will continue to.
So my 6-year-old daughter shamed me into taking her to the Vanderbilt-Tennessee game. She was so disappointed that we weren't going, and it was a rainy night here. It was cold, and my 6-year-old looks at me and she makes a noise that I've never heard. My wife looks at me and goes, "Man, you better solve that problem." So we get across town, we go over there, and obviously a huge game, but you've got to watch it. You got to watch that game. You got to watch Clemson as well. A lot of players don't do what you did, which is stay there, be with the team. What were you saying to Joe? What were you saying to the team? What was the thought process behind making that decision to be there every moment?
Yeah, I really just didn't want to be separated from my teammates. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to play in the bowl game, and that would have to be in California a majority of the bowl prep. And bowl prep is my favorite time of the year because it's good on good, and you're scrimmaging every day. And it's just a lot of competitive nature and a lot of testosterone going on in the facility. Just itching at the bit to play another team. So not being able to be there, not being able to welcome in the incoming freshmen with Lil Nico and a lot of his counterparts. But I think that being there and just bringing that energy to the locker room before the game and enjoying our last regular season win, it was special.
So obviously, I want some names from you that fans need to hear about that haven't had a lot of reps yet, that haven't got their name out there in the SEC. So give us some names, some of those young guys, a couple great recruiting classes that Hype's put together. So give us a couple names that fans need to know, and of course, make sure you tell everybody about your beans there.
Yeah. So the first top two, the ones, we call them the ones. Dante Thornton, receiver, coming from Oregon. Left tackle John Campbell, He's a monster. He's a monster. I'm excited to see him throw some people out of the club come up here this season. Everyone knows Nico, and then the two-headed monsters in the backfield. Three-headed monsters actually with Jalen Wright, Jabari Small, and Dylan Sampson. I'm excited to see those guys do their thing. Everyone knows Brew McCoy, big-time catch. Ramel Keaton, he's updating a new number, so now he's wearing number 9. You guys got to get used to that one. And then Lil Squirrel White, Mr. Electricity, just super fast. And then Rocket Arm Joe, he's going to go out there and put on a show. So I'm excited.
And I guess maybe you haven't figured this out. You've done mini camp and everything, but like you're going to have to make sure Tennessee is represented in the locker room. And on Saturdays, how are you getting people to come out to watch some ball?
Yeah, so I'm gonna rock my orange on Saturdays for sure. Got my Joe Milton jersey, and then my Tyler Barron jersey for sure.
Thank you, Hendon. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That was Hendon Hooker, of course, still one of the nicest dudes you're ever going to be around. Just a very genuine guy, and interesting comments about Josh Heupel's communication style. Again, I think the key there with good coaches in the SEC, and I think Mike Vrabel exhibits this as well. Constant personal touch and communication with your players, pretending and not pretending, but actually caring about who they are and what they do. And a lot of names there in the receiving core that he thinks are going to become stars this year. And some interesting stuff about Joe Milton, the chef, Dirty Rice, and Joe Sketty. I don't know about Joe Sketty as a name. I didn't want to dog him out in front of Hendon, but
I thought that was pretty interesting because again, it's not like chef cuisine, meals that he's making. I mean, it's very college level-esque. But I did think that was interesting that Joe Milton loves to cook. Then he apparently cooks really great dirty rice and whatever that Joe Sketty's crap sounds like.
I didn't ask any further follow-ups about Joe Sketty. It's just, it is what it is. But no, Hendon's a great sport, of course, coming to the SEC, and we'll see about his. He said, I asked him about welcome to the SEC moment and are you ready for your welcome to the NFL moment? And his answer was, there was a welcome to Hendon Hooker moment because I gained so much confidence. I learned, I can do this. And so there's a flip that switched in his brain that he thought, you know what, the SEC is great, but like I can play here. I belong here. And it's when he was making plays instead of the other way around. I have a feeling that will be an interesting dynamic when he gets to Lions camp here in a couple of weeks. And they're actually some live ammunition flying around. So, so appreciate Hendon Hooker swinging by. Make sure you check out all of our great SEC coverage on Fringe Element podcast, of course. So great stuff there from him. And we'll have all kinds of players and stuff coming on for you over there on the feed and the YouTube page as well, as you guys are well aware. So check that out. Okay. Sinkers Beverages, Kingston Group. Appreciate you guys sponsoring us this week. Netflix. I don't know if you watched the whole thing. I've now watched yesterday. I've now watched the whole thing. My first question: what do you think of Brittany Mahomes?
She wasn't as annoying as I thought she was going to be. Of course, that's what the editing department is for. But you could see the. My wife said that she definitely has resting bitch face.
My wife. That's what you just said. My wife was like, she's not as bad as I thought, but like they knew they were in front of cameras and there's editors, right? And I was like, it's literally what you just said.
Yeah, and well, the funny thing is that you see the Mahomes that are the Brittany Mahomes in glimpses, the one that we've come to know because of the bad press. You see it in glimpses during the game. Like you see that, she's kind of annoying. She is that in real life. My biggest
she does ride or die. She does ride or die for him though.
I think that if you didn't love Patrick Mahomes before now, even if you're a Chargers fan, the utmost respect. I mean, like I can't say anything negative about the guy besides his voice. That's it. Also, he needs to quit repeating himself.
He repeats himself
so much,
just all the time.
But I mean, dude's a competitor. I think the crazy training that he does and puts his body through is just insane. Utmost respect for him.
Yeah.
Marcus definitely quit, like we all thought. That was another big takeaway was like
that was the most. I thought that was the most interesting part of the story. And having been around him a little bit, I am surprised that Arthur Smith didn't like defend him a little bit more because Arthur Smith clearly said, no, we didn't talk about the surgery, which I thought was interesting. But I think there is knowing him the way that just a little bit. There is no way that the daughter wasn't the main driving factor.
Right.
It was clearly about I'm going to hold my daughter. I'm going to get ready for my knee to be ready for next season, even though I don't have to do it. Desmond Ridder, I think one important note is that Desmond Ridder they told him that he was going to start every game. That doesn't mean he's not still one play away from getting back out there.
Right.
But if he does not have his baby daughter during that moment, his first child ever,
100%.
there is no chance he walks away from the team. So.
And I do not. From having lived next to Marcus, I understand, not surprised in the least that he chose his family over the game of football and being a backup. And I've said that numerous times on Football and Other Efforts when discussing this, but that does not change the fact. The straight fact is he did not have to have that surgery, and he poorly communicated that that's what was going to happen. And he took the opportunity of getting benched to go spend time with his family, and good for him. However, at the end of the day, that is still quitting on your team. But also, let me say this. I do not know why he's putting himself through another year of NFL football to go play in Philadelphia, which is so far away from his family. That seems like a recipe for disaster, and I don't know why he's doing it.
Maybe because Jalen's he fits the offense really well, and Jalen could get hurt playing that style. I don't know.
But also, Marcus is going to get hurt playing that style.
That's true. But hey, maybe you win a ring as a backup. I mean, there's
there's no chance they're winning a ring.
Also, you could also make a couple $1 million.
Yeah,
as
but I mean, at some point, he doesn't need an extra $1 million. I mean, everybody wants an extra $1 million, but I mean, I don't know. It just seems like I can't get a grit. I can't understand why
it was hard.
He goes back. Weird. But I think, also Kirk Cousins said it best. And like, if you put Ryan Tannehill, it's the same story arc. I feel like you get the same, it's
very similar. Yeah, actually,
I like everything he said. I'm just like, is that Ryan Tannehill? If I just squint just enough, I think that's Ryan Tannehill. I love Kirk Cousins, but I've always appreciated what Kirk Cousins is more than everybody else.
He is the most basic middle-aged white dude I have ever seen play quarterback in the NFL. But like,
he's one of the toughest,
what a tough MFer. And like the dude, I think what's interesting about Tannehill is the only thing is that Tannehill was such a high draft pick that there's less of that chip on the shoulder. But there is sort of like a built-in underrated doubt thing that plays into Ryan Tannehill that I think is very similar with Kirk Cousins. But Cousins was sort of like, Tannehill was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school, not at quarterback, but a 4-star recruit. Like Tannehill kind of has had a little bit more pedigree every step of the way, whereas Cousins was an underrated player in high school, underrated recruit, went to Michigan State, had to earn his way onto the field, didn't get drafted very highly, 3rd, 4th round or whatever it was. But man, what a tough SOB. And frankly, that is as basic an NFL family as I have ever seen. And I don't mean that like as an insult, but my God, like he's just such a it's almost too boring.
I liked it.
No, it was fine.
We enjoyed it.
Okay, so we'll wrap up here with SEC quarterbacks. Now we can try to do. There's 2 ways you could do this. Who are the 3 most interesting quarterbacks you'd like to follow, packaged with the storylines of the team and the coach and what's interesting, right? Or you could try to match the trio, which is like the superstar Mahomes, the sort of underrated grinder who's pretty good Cousins, and the redemption story Mariota, right? Like those would be the 3. So do you want to try to match the stories, or do you want to just pick the 3 most interesting players? Like what's more like what?
Well, I think it's more of the, for me, it's more of the, it was a clear, what you're saying is a clear level, but I mean, also Kirk Cousins had a really freaking awesome year last year that didn't end up in a Super Bowl, but he went farther than I think what people expect in the preseason. I don't know if coaches really play into it for me, because the coaches took up, I think, 5% of the film. Like, I mean, it wasn't really about the coaches. It really was about the players and what they go through in a daily grind and what they do. So, like, for me, I would think that KJ Jefferson is kind of like your Kirk Cousins type in the sense that he's the super likable one, the one that kind of flies under the radar, even though he's really consistently good from season to season.
I like that.
So I would put KJ Jefferson on there. I think Joe Milton would be one. And I think that first off, if you're Netflix, you get tons of ratings just from Joe Milton being the one of the guys.
He would be great television.
He's great television. I mean, he's got good personality, but he's kind of been, and we joke about it all the time, he's been in playing college football since 2000. So let's kind of like Marcus Mariota in the sense that he keeps traveling around everywhere and can't really catch on. This is his chance to be a starter and catch on somewhere. So I'd put him on there.
Okay.
There is no Patrick Mahomes in this SEC. So there's no one like him where there is the A-plus superstar.
Bryce Young and Hendon Hooker would have been that guy last year.
Yeah. So for me, I think I would go like, which quarterback is going to provide the most drama during the year? And I think that's going to be Spencer Rattler. Like, following Spencer Rattler's career through this season from what he was supposed to be to where he's trying to get back to, I think would be such an interesting story to follow.
And there's no way you're right about the coaches not being a huge part of it, but there's no way Shane Beamer doesn't make himself a big part of it.
Yeah. Or at least he maybe on accident, maybe not on purpose. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
So last year, I think it would have been very easy. Bryce Young is your Patrick Mahomes, reigning Heisman Trophy winner. Stetson Bennett is your Kirk Cousins, right? Yeah. Underrated, but really damn good. Chip on his shoulder. Kind of a basic dude. Just your basic accountant playing football. And I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think who the redemption story could have been.
Not really a redemption story, but you would have to put Hendon Hooker in there. He's the most interesting out of all the guys that are left.
But he's not a Mariota level kind of guy, like in terms of the quality. I think Jaden Daniels to me is the top most interesting guy in terms of like established star power. And on the team that's going to be top 5, top 6 in the preseason. They might even be picked to beat Alabama and win the West this year. And because there's another notch for him, like that he's number 2 in the Heisman voting right now in terms of the odds to win it. It's number 1 Caleb Williams, number 2 Jaden Daniels. It's not correct. I would not bet on it. But the hype and the coverage and the press, like he is the star right now. Like he's the name that is the star. If I knew what was going to happen at Ole Miss or Bama or Georgia, I would try to figure out a way to get like Jackson Dart might be the right Marcus Mariota because Jackson Dart is a guy that they went out and got 2 transfers. Lane Kiffin went and got 2 guys to come in and battle with Jackson Dart, even though he was the starter last year. So Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, interesting, fun team, good offense. Jackson Dart's the returning starter, but the coach doesn't necessarily believe in him. Like that, to me, that's the Marcus Mariota story maybe. And then I love Joe Milton as just a general story because I think he'd be great television. He's a really interesting personality. The offense is big. He's very photogenic with like the size and the arm and the practices and everything. But it was hard for me not to have Rattler in there too. I think you're dead on the career journey, the career path. There's clearly some redemption there with Rattler as well. But they're all interesting. AJ Swan, is he the breakout star? Connor Wigman at A&M, is he the breakout star? Like Devin Leary's transfer has been very interesting. So I think there's a lot of good, interesting stories, but not any guys that are Mahomes or Kirk Cousins in the SEC currently. If you're doing it for college football, it is Caleb Williams. Williams is Patrick Mahomes. Like that's it right there. The other guys, it's hard to pick. There's so many interesting stories around college football. So.
I don't know. I think SEC is like KJ Jefferson is pretty much your Kirk Cousins. Don't you think? I think
no, you make
not in play style, but in the way that they
you did a good.
In the way that they have been productive in their wherever stop they are at, or any year they're severely underrated as far as talent goes.
Yeah, I
last year it would have been Will Levis. You'd almost have to do the 4 SEC. You'd have to do Hooker, names. Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, and Will Levis. Like I feel like that would be. You'd have to almost do those guys.
This doesn't count as SEC, but kind of. Quinn Ewers at Texas would be a fascinating track and TV arc because there's lots of expectations on that team. Heralded recruit, had some bright moments, but also not so good moments last year. You got Arch Manning as like an added storyline behind him there, which makes for interesting television. Steve Sarkisian, the offense, Texas, changing leagues is dramatic. Like there's a whole lot that would go into a Quinn Ewers. I would follow Quinn Ewers. I would watch a documentary about Quinn Ewers this year, whether he's good or bad. I think it would be fascinating to track that one as well. So there you have it. Send us yours if you want to. We recorded this, so we appreciate you guys hanging out with us, but obviously, rate, review, subscribe, check out the show. Send us your 3 quarterbacks, Sinkers Beverages, Kingston Group, stackingtheinbox.com. Welcome to town, DeAndre Hopkins, football and other F words. And, of course, thanks to Hendon Hooker and Bush's Beans for hanging out with us on day number 1 at SEC Media Days. We'll be back on Thursday to wrap up all of the storylines that we heard, all of the talking season from this week down in downtown Nashville at the Grand Hyatt. Seekers Beverages, Kingston Group. Zach, always a pleasure, my man. Thanks for hanging out. My name is Braden Gall. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you guys on Thursday.